WWE 2K16, a game I rented all the way back in 2016 from Gamefly, which is somehow still around by the way. Played for about 5 minutes, realized it was just 2K15 with an updated roster, and sent the game back. That was my only experience with WWE 2K16 up until 2021 when I picked up the game again, and honestly, it made me wish I'd given this game more of a shot when I played it originally. Now it is worth noting that the version I played originally was the Xbox 360 version, which dare I say is the best version of this game. Now as much as I'd like to talk about the Xbox 360 version of 2K16, I already talked about 2K15 on last gen and 2K14, and 2K16 on 360 is pretty much just those games with an updated roster. Don't believe me? Try and guess which one of these is WWE 2K16. They're all 2K15. So the version I'll be talking about today is actually the Xbox One version. Is it as good as the 360 version? No. Despite that though, the next gen version of this game isn't terrible. It has some good things to it, like the 2K Showcase, which focused on the career of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the roster, which was pretty decent overall, as well as the gameplay, which was a huge improvement over 2K15. Not to mention the great looking box art, which I still believe is the best looking box art from the 2K series. So with all that out of the way, let's dive into what made WWE 2K16 so awesome. WWE 2K16 was released in October of 2015 and was received much better than 2K15 on launch. 2K16 was a step in the right direction for the WWE 2K series, and it seemed like the series had a bright future ahead of it. Even before 2K16 officially launched, the build up to this game's release was so fucking cool. I remember seeing that commercial with Arnold, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name, and just being blown away. That one commercial alone legit had me convinced this was going to be the greatest wrestling game of all time. And because this game was following what many considered to be the worst wrestling game of all time, WWE 2K15, it wasn't going to be that hard for 2K16 to surpass 2K15. Enough about the backstory of this game though, why don't we get into what the actual gameplay of the game is like? Well, I will say, just from the gameplay alone, 2K16 is much better than 2K15. Before 2K17 completely changed up the gameplay formula by adding in a lot of limitations, 2K16 still had a lot of DNA left over from games like WWE 13 and 2K14. The gameplay of 2K16 still felt fast and fluid much like those games did, and while you could tell 2K was still trying to lean towards that slow-paced simulation style gameplay that they were aiming for with 2K15, I don't think it was as egregious in this game. When I play 2K16, I don't have to worry about moving at a snail's pace when I'm just trying to do a basic ass move, or just doing something like walking around the ring. 2K16 felt like a much needed breath of fresh air in the gameplay department. If you feel the gameplay just isn't fast enough, you still have the option to just turn off stamina if you really want to. And again, because this is pre-2K17, you're able to place tables wherever you want and have 5-star classic Extreme Rules matches with no issues. It's obvious 2K heard the complaints about 2K15 when making 2K16, because almost every issue that plagued 15's gameplay is fixed here, which is great to see. Honestly, if 2K19's gameplay wasn't so good, I would say 2K16's gameplay is the definitive gameplay of the 2K series pre-2K22. It's quick, responsive, and just overall really fun. A lot of the stuff that was good about 2K15's gameplay, such as chain wrestling, even carried over into this game, which was pretty cool. Chain wrestling was just a simple minigame at the end of the day, but it did a great job at adding more depth into matches. I still wish the mechanic would make a return to the games nowadays, but unfortunately, I don't think that'll ever happen. Even the new gameplay features that 2K16 added were pretty good, such as the breakout mechanic, which allowed you to run in on your opponent during their entrance. A lot lot of these mechanics would end up becoming mainstays throughout the rest of the 2K series. This was also the first WWE game to introduce the reversal limit mechanic, which I've never really been a huge fan of. As much as I dislike the reversal limit mechanic though, I do like the fact that it added a bit of strategy, as you actually had to think about when you wanted to reverse a move. Now when it comes to match types, this game really doesn't have a lot to offer. Don't get me wrong though, the match types that are offered in this game are still really fun to play. As I said earlier, Extreme Rules matches are awesome as always. Hell in a Cell matches are actually good in this game because the cell doesn't restrict your movement like it does in the games that would follow this one, and ladder matches are still just as chaotic as always. Now that I've talked about the gameplay and match types, I want to go ahead and talk about the roster, because for what it was worth, it was pretty good in my opinion. We got a lot of Attitude Era stars because of the Stone Cold Showcase, a pretty good mixture of legends and modern superstars, as well as a lot of NXT stars from that time period like Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Baron Corbin, as well as many others. As I said, the NXT representation was pretty solid, and I love the Attitude Era stars that were included in the game, such as Ken Shamrock, 2001 Chris Jericho, and Brian Pillman. Now sure, it's not a 100% perfect roster, but I think it got the job done. Also, what other wrestling game lets you play as ECW legend Mikey Whipwreck? Exactly. Oh, and Terminator was in there too, but I mean, whatever. The roster being good is one thing though, but what about the arena selection? Well, thankfully, that's also pretty good. 2K16 doesn't have as many arenas as, let's say, WWE 13, but when it comes to the selection of Attitude Era arenas, 2K16 doesn't hold back. You get arenas like WrestleMania 15, 14, 19, 17, ECW November to Remember, and many, many more. Some of these arenas were also featured in WWE 13, but it was great seeing them playable again, this time in a next-gen WWE game with better graphics. Speaking of graphics, let's talk about the visuals, because this is where the game really shines. WWE 2K16 looks pretty damn good. Everything in this game looks really well polished and overall just looks incredible. Every arena, especially the Attitude Era arenas, looks stunning, and the same can be said for the superstars as well. Well, some of them anyways. Look, I'm sorry, but that is not The Rock. I absolutely love the way Demon Finn Balor's entrance looks in this game, and I swear Triple H looks great in every WWE game, but in this game especially, he looks damn good. Now that I've talked about the gameplay and all that, it's time to move on to the first of the two big modes featured in this game. That of course being the My Career mode. The My Career mode in 2K16 is just alright. You start off by creating your character before going into your first set of tryout matches in the Performance Center. After that, you get sent to NXT and work your way up to the main roster. Something I really like about this game's My Career mode is you're free to do whatever you want. You're not given any objectives to follow in your matches, so you really feel like you have control over what happens in your career. I don't hate the objective system in the My Career modes of the current games, but coming back to 2K16's My Career, where I can play through each match in the mode without having to worry about completing a bunch of different objectives, is a nice change of pace. The My Career of this game is a hell of a lot better than 2K15's My Career was, and you're sure to get a lot of replay value out of it. Speaking of replay value, let's talk about the second big mode of this game, 2K Showcase. 2K16 was the second WWE 2K game to feature the 2K Showcase as a playable mode, and until 2K19, it was also the last game to feature the mode at all. 2K17 would see the mode locked behind a paywall, and 2K18? Yeah, it didn't have one. After playing through the Showcase though, it's very obvious why they gave up on Showcase after this, because they knew nothing could top this game's Showcase. 2K16 Showcase is still, in my opinion, one of the best showcases we've ever seen in the 2K games. Being able to play through the career of Stone Cold was and still is just the coolest thing ever. The Showcase begins at the 1996 King of the Ring, where Austin gave his infamous 360 2K16 speech and ends with The Rock versus Austin at WrestleMania 19. Every moment from each match featured in this showcase is recreated with in-game cutscenes, which is always awesome to see. The whole showcase just felt like you were playing through one big documentary focused on Austin's career, and it was actually fun to play, unlike the showcases we have now. Even after you finished the showcase, there were bonus objectives which just added more replay value to the game. Most of the bonus objectives would usually boil down to just having you play as somebody else besides Austin in the showcase matches, which is a really cool way of making the showcase more interesting. All in all, the 2K showcase in 2K16 is really fun to play through. There's just so many matches and bonus objectives, and none of them feel like a chore to play through. This is a showcase that can last you hours, which is nice because, let's be honest, playing as Stone Cold never gets old, so having a mode that lasts as long as this, focused solely on Austin's career, is pretty awesome. In conclusion, WWE 2K16 was and still is a great WWE game. Is it the greatest WWE game of all time? Far from it, but for what it was certainly a lot of fun. The gameplay was excellent, the showcase was a lot of fun as I mentioned a little bit ago, and the roster was pretty damn good. Sure, the game isn't perfect, there are bugs and glitches here and there, but the main reason I didn't mention that in this video is because I simply just didn't encounter that many while replaying the game for this video. If you can find WWE 2K16 for Xbox One or PS4 at a decent price, I highly suggest picking it up because it's worth giving a try. The 360 version's still better though.